I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
Reverend Falwell talking about the attacks on 9/11. Over the years, Falwell spoke out against gays and lesbians repeatedly, calling homosexuality an abomination, among other things. In a moment, you'll hear from Reverend Mel White, who literally wrote Falwell's autobiography before revealing his own homosexuality and trying to change Falwell's opinions toward gays and lesbians. But first, Randy Kay looks back at Falwell and his attitude toward gay and lesbian citizens.
We talk about AIDS as the judgment of God upon moral perversion in this society.
He once called AIDS God's punishment for homosexuals. But now the war of words between Reverend Jerry Falwell and the gay community is over.
There's no way as a Christian who takes the Bible seriously we could ever condone the behavior of homosexuals. What they do is wrong.
Wrong in Falwell's eyes, even if you're a Teletubby. Falwell never liked the looks of Tinky Winky, the purple Teletubby with the male voice and magic bag. Tinky Winky, he warned, was promoting the gay agenda.
Parents, be very careful what your children are watching.
GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, is just one of the many groups that locked horns with Falwell.
His comments about the Teletubbies just showed how out of touch he was with regard to America.
GLAAD's Neil Giuliano says Falwell's attacks were a violation of religious faith.
Religion and faith really should be something that pulls people together and gives people an opportunity to live as one human family, and gay and lesbian Americans are a part of that family.
When Ellen DeGeneres told Time magazine she was a lesbian, Falwell called her Ellen Degenerate. He sparred with liberal politicians like openly gay Congressman Barney Frank.
I don't hate you, I just think that you're a moral pervert.
What some consider his most outrageous suggestion, gays somehow contributed to 9/11.
I really believe that the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians who are actively trying to make that an alternative lifestyle, the ACLU, People for the American Way, all of them who tried to secularize America, I point the finger in their face and say, you helped this happen.
Falwell later apologized. In the end, Falwell's finger-pointing may have worked not just for him, but also against him. Some gay rights activists say by rallying his base, he brought visibility to the gay and lesbian cause, even sympathy.
His views are being rejected by the majority of Americans with regard to the rights for gay and lesbian Americans. And so in that sense, it's good to have those people out there that are going to fight, because we actually are making progress in spite of their efforts.
A fight they will carry on because the power of Falwell's anti-gay agenda didn't die with him. Randy Kay, CNN, New York.
Well, we turn now to someone who spent years trying to convince Jerry Falwell that his anti-gay views were wrong. Reverend Mel White became friends with Falwell while working for him as a ghostwriter in the 1980s. White was married and the father of 2 at the time. When he later announced he was gay, he and Falwell didn't speak for 5 years. White and his male partner founded an interfaith movement for gays called Soul Force and moved into a house across the street from Falwell's church and began going to services at his church. Reverend White joins me now. First of all, the moment you heard Jerry Falwell had died, what went through your mind?
I felt sad. I felt really sad for his family and for the school and for the students. He was a good pastor, a good provost, a good family man, but he was also so bad in terms of his influence on the nation about gay people. So I felt sad that the gay and lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people had never had a chance to hear him say, I'm sorry, like the black people did in 1964. I was hoping for that, and it never happened.
Do you think he would have changed? I mean, I know publicly you said you thought he might change his mind. You thought moving next to him, across the street from him, attending his church with your partner might show him the reality of gay people in America. Do you think it made any difference?
I think it made a lot of difference to a lot of people. For example, gay and lesbian people in Lynchburg were stunned and really surprised and happy. We had our first out and about Lynchburg. We're going on with that. But in the church, I don't know. When we attend now, people recognize me. They say hello. But Jerry went closet. Jerry went silent, and I haven't heard from him in the last 4 years.
There are a lot of people who would say that he hated gays, but then he always said, look, I hate the sin, I don't hate the sinner. He viewed it, of course, as a sin. You spent a lot of time with him before he knew you were gay. Personally, do you think he hated gays?
I'd like to say that I hate Jerry's sins, and I tried to love Jerry the sinner, right back at him. The fact is, I think he was really sincere about his feelings that homosexuality was a threat to the nation. Really sincere that by welcoming gays to this great country, that God would take his hand of blessing off this country and thus allow 9/11. To call him a huckster is really dangerous because he was a sincere believer, and that's much more difficult to deal with. I don't know what he hated. I would say he thinks he loved us, but in fact he showed all the signs of hatred and created a lot of hatred against us by his rhetoric.
He never really admitted to that. He would always say, look, that he wasn't promoting hate, that his words were not causing harm to gay and lesbian citizens. You say that's not true.
Yeah, Jim Dobson, Pat Robertson, Jerry Falwell, they all say our rhetoric doesn't lead to any suffering and death. Well, they're wrong. I've buried so many young gay people who have killed themselves from Christian families who've been influenced directly and indirectly by this rhetoric. And I've buried a lot of young gays who have been bashed to death by gay people, by anti-gay people who quote these guys, who quote the scriptures to give them a reason, an excuse for killing us. So I think their rhetoric condemns, it caricatures, it kills us, and I think we got to deal with that rhetoric.
There was an incident I read about where you were riding in a limousine with him, and there was a demonstration, and he was speaking about gay people. What was it he said?
We were surrounded by gay protesters. That's when I thought I was sick and sinful myself, before I realized that homosexuality is a gift from God to be accepted and celebrated. But in that limousine, he said to me one day, well, I just love these gay demonstrators. Without them, I wouldn't get near the attention I get. If I didn't have them, I'd have to invent them. So we played into his hand in many ways.
You think it was, in some ways, a way to raise money? I mean, he needed to raise a lot of money every year.
Oh yeah, he raised more money off the gay threat than off any other single cause. Maybe abortion had ties with it, but he used these incredible pictures of gays as promiscuous, as gays as child abusers, as gays a threat to the nation, to the family. He went on and undermining the American values. He said these things. He created us as a scapegoat. And then he said, now send me money and I will create an environment here in Liberty University campus where young people will be trained not to be gay, where they will get over their sexual orientation problems. But I tell you, Jerry was sincere in that, but he was sincerely wrong, and he did terrible damage to gay people. But, Anderson, he also rallied us. He made us get interested in achieving justice for ourselves. Soul Force, I don't think would have happened unless Jerry Falwell had been so obstreperous about gay people. We actually formed to visit his church to try to get this leading fundamentalist, this face of homophobia in the nation, to see gay people and to see we are not at all like he says he were.
Reverend White, we appreciate you being on the program. Thank you very much.
Anytime.
You can see our Falwell coverage on the new 360 Daily Podcast. You don't need an iPod. You can watch it on your computer at cnn.com/AC360 Podcast, or get it from the iTunes Store, where it is a top download. We're going to have more on the life and death of Jerry Falwell coming up, including a look at the showdown he had with another televangelist.